Okay, perfect. We are now live on YouTube. Okay, hello everyone. My name is Rochelle. I'm the dietitian for Choices in Kitsilano. It's my pleasure today to introduce Gloria Sun. Gloria Sun is a cardiac registered dietitian and founder of Walnut Nutrition. Gloria has helped out hundreds of clients in lowering their risk of heart disease, heart attack, and stroke, as well as lowering their cholesterol, blood pressure, and blood sugars. She graduated from the University of British Columbia with a major in dietetics. Gloria has a diverse background and has worked with various leading organizations in the cardiac field. She is passionate in coaching clients in reaching their personal heart health goals and skilled in building simple, sustainable, and evidence-based nutrition plans and strategies for her clients. For those who have attended this presentation today, you're actually eligible for something called a nutrition buck. So a nutrition buck is a $10 off Choices coupon when you spend $50 or more. So a survey link will be sent out to you at the very end of the seminar so we can collect your mailing address. All nutrition bucks will be sent out approximately 1 month after the event, so you can visit or call your local Choices store to talk nutrition with one of our in-store nutrition consultants, or you can email us at nutrition@choicesmarkets.com. So throughout the presentation, if you have any questions, you can just leave them in the chat box and they will be answered at the very end of the seminar. So please remember that you have to be signed into your YouTube account or create one if you don't have one in order to participate in the chat box of this video. So with that being said, I will pass it over to Gloria and I hope everyone enjoys.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for the introduction, Rochelle, and thank you so much, everybody, for attending this presentation today. It is my pleasure to be presenting to you all about the top 5 heart health nutrition myths and busting them together. I wanted to give everybody an overview of what we'll be talking about today before we begin. We're going to be covering the best diet for heart health. Is there really a best diet? And talk more about this topic. Sugar and heart health as well, touching upon that, cholesterol in foods, cooking oils for heart health, as well as omega-3 fatty acid intake. So let's dive right into it. First question is, what is the best diet to follow for heart disease prevention? This is probably the most common and popular question I get from clients all the time is, what exactly do I eat to help prevent my risk? And what is the best diet? Is there really a best diet out there? There is a lot of information, I would say, on the web nowadays surrounding heart health, and a lot of different fad diets are emerging as well. And you've probably heard of some of them before, maybe on social media, or maybe a blog post, an article, or movies, or even in everyday conversations with other people. Maybe you've heard of certain terms like the keto diet, or something like juice cleanses even, and different types of fad diets. A lot of these diets, a really big pattern that we can really see across the board is that they are based upon restriction, which unfortunately isn't the most sustainable thing. Something that I talk about with clients a lot is the importance of sustainability. And really the best diet that you can follow for your heart health is the one that you can confidently maintain and enjoy for the long term, for life, while you're living your best life, really. And what happens sometimes when we go on restrictive diets as well is that we may not be getting enough nutrition. We may be lacking essential nutrients that actually may be beneficial for heart health even. And so rather than focusing on things that we can remove from our diets and restricting ourselves, something I'd love to talk more about with you all is sustainability and focusing on eating patterns that we can maintain within the long run. And with that having said, there's 3 patterns of eating that I really wanted to introduce to you all today that have been very much backed in terms of science, evidence, very well known to be beneficial for heart disease prevention. And by no means are they restrictive, and they're fully customizable to your personal lifestyle, which is so, so important. So to introduce them to you all, one of them is the Mediterranean eating pattern. Another one is the vegetarian or vegan eating pattern. And the third one is dietary approaches to stop hypertension, also known as the DASH eating pattern. Hypertension is another word for high blood pressure. In no specific order at all, these three patterns of eating have been very much shown to be beneficial for prevention of cardiovascular disease. And we'll be touching upon each one of them and what they consist of. So the first one, the Mediterranean eating pattern. This eating pattern is a pattern of eating that reflects the patterns across many countries surrounding the Mediterranean Sea. And it dates back as early as the 1950s. It really emphasizes a sustainable and enjoyable lifestyle, understanding that heart disease prevention is not just about eating well. There are many different factors associated with it. It's really important that we take a holistic approach and not just focused on food, because there are so many other important aspects in our life that are so important as well. For example, to name a few, regular physical activity, finding movement that we enjoy, stress management, mental health is so key as well. Sleeping, adequate sleep is really important too. Lots of different factors in terms of a heart healthy lifestyle that all make huge impacts in terms of prevention. The Mediterranean eating pattern too has a big focus on whole plant-based foods, as well as various different healthy fat options. This eating pattern can also reduce risk of major cardiovascular events up to 28 to 30%, which is huge, a huge number. So following this pattern of eating, we know for a fact that it can definitely help with preventing our risk. Let's take a little deeper look into what it consists of. So I made this pyramid scheme, and with pyramid schemes, the bottom items are more foundational. So things we really want to choose more often, and as we move up, are things maybe we want to choose in moderation and less often. And so right at the bottom of this pyramid scheme, we can see the lifestyle factors aside from just food. Being physically active, finding movement that we enjoy. For example, maybe it doesn't have to be the typical gym, unless you enjoy that, of course. It could be something like swimming, it could be biking, it could be dancing, it could be many different things. It could be a mix of things too. Enjoying meals with others is an important part of a heart healthy lifestyle as well. Spending time with loved ones can be amazing for our mental health. As we move up, we see various different foods. Like I mentioned before, this eating pattern is very well based in plant-based foods, which we can see right at the bottom there. We can see various different fruits and vegetables. With fruits and vegetables, we always recommend to choose different colors, because different colors provide different vitamins and minerals, antioxidants to support our heart health. There's also whole grains. Whole grains include things like, for example, whole grain breads, whole grain tortillas, whole grain pastas, things like barley or quinoa and whatnot. There also includes legumes. So legumes are a type of plant-based protein along with nuts and seeds. Legumes, you can think of them as beans, lentils, or chickpeas. And we also have olive oil. So we can see that huge emphasis on plant-based foods here. The thing with plant-based foods is not only do you get vitamins and minerals from them and antioxidants like we talked about, which are beneficial for overall health and heart health, of course, they are also very packed in something called fiber. Fiber is absolutely huge for heart health because it not only helps us lower cholesterol, but it also helps us to stabilize blood sugars, which anyone can benefit from because it helps to stabilize our energy levels throughout the day. And fiber also increases beneficial bacteria in our gut, which then also helps to lower inflammation, which chronic diseases are related to. It also supports your immune health as well. So fiber really is a powerhouse, and plant-based foods are filled with them. As we move up the pyramid scheme, we can see other things as well, like fish and seafood, great protein sources. Moving even further up, we see poultry, eggs, and dairy. And we also see, choosing less often at the top, red meats and sweets. Something else that I wanted to mention as well is that something I talk about a lot with clients is something called patterns. And focusing on patterns is really beneficial as opposed to singling out individual food items. What we look at really is patterns that you're forming across weeks, months, and years, as opposed to a single food, a single day, or moment in time. And so, as you can see, it doesn't cut out red meat completely or sweets from here. It's just about how often we're choosing them, and it's all about overall balance here. So that's a Mediterranean eating pattern. Let's take a look at the next one. Vegetarian and vegan eating pattern. This eating pattern is also very, very much focused on plant-based foods. We can see a difference between the two. With the vegetarian eating pattern, it allows dairy, eggs, and honey, and the vegan eating pattern, on the other hand, doesn't allow those three things. That's kind of where the difference lies among the two. Whichever one you prefer is the one I would say you can choose. And do take note that a vegetarian and vegan eating pattern can be fully sustainable and is able to replace an animal-based diet, which many people think it cannot, but it can fully do that. As long as it is well planned, it can help prevent risk. Working with a dietitian personally can be a really helpful thing to do, especially when you're starting a new eating pattern or a vegetarian vegan eating pattern, to make sure that you're getting enough nutrients, you're not lacking in certain things. Just takes a bit of planning, especially if you're not used to choosing different plant-based foods. For example, cooking with different plant-based proteins like legumes and nuts and seeds. Taking a look at the pyramid scheme for it, we can see, similar to the Mediterranean eating pattern, we can see the lifestyle factors at the bottom, as well as lots of fruits and vegetables. Again, different colors we want to choose ones that you like, you personally enjoy. As we move up, we can then see whole grains, we can see legumes, soy, nuts and seeds, all different types of plant-based proteins that I always encourage clients to incorporate more of. As we move even more up, we see different herbs, spices, plant oils, eggs, and dairy at the very top, and that's where the vegetarian difference lies. With the third eating pattern I wanted to talk a bit about more is the DASH eating pattern. Again, that stands for Dietary Approaches to Stop Hypertension. Hypertension is another word for high blood pressure. And so this eating pattern is a great one to follow if you do experience high blood pressure, or the other two, the Mediterranean eating pattern, vegan vegetarian eating pattern, are also very beneficial for blood pressure management as well. There are two studies that were done for the DASH eating pattern. The first one was called the DASH study. In the study, they compared 3 different diets. The first one was a typical North American diet. The second one was the same diet, but with fruits and vegetables added. The third one was the DASH diet, which we'll be taking a look at in the next slide. What they found in this study was that the greatest lowering effect on blood pressure was found with the DASH diet. And the lower levels were seen within 2 weeks of starting. The DASH sodium study was another study that was done, and they basically compared a DASH diet with less than 2,300 milligrams of sodium and a DASH diet with less than 1,500 milligrams of sodium. They found through this study that the lower the amount of salt or sodium within that diet, the greater the lowering effect on blood pressure. This eating pattern also very much emphasizes whole foods, mostly plant-based, It's also very rich in potassium, magnesium, and calcium. And these three we can also find very much in the other diets as well, and where they are well known to help lower blood pressure. The DASH eating pattern as well results also in a reduction in all-cause mortality, cardiovascular disease, and diabetes by 22%, which is absolutely huge again. Taking a deeper look into it, we can see it's very similar to the other ones as well. Those lifestyle factors, cannot forget those. As we move up, we see different fruits and vegetables again, whole grains, we see seafood, poultry, lean meats, low-fat dairy, beans, nuts, and seeds. We also see different oils, salad dressing, as well. At the very top, we see sweets to choose less often. And so those are the three eating patterns I wanted to introduce. When we look at the three eating patterns as a whole, we see a lot of common themes. We can see for sure something that I've already said so many times is that they're very much based on whole plant-based foods. Lots of fruits and vegetables, whole grains, and plant-based proteins, those legumes and nuts and seeds. These various different plant-based foods we also talked about are high in vitamins and minerals, as well as antioxidants and fiber that are all very much beneficial for preventing risk of cardiovascular disease or future heart events as well. They are also, we can see, lower in something called saturated fat, which we'll be talking about in the later slides in the presentation as well. But we see a pattern of more white meat, so things like chicken or turkey, more often than red meats, and less sweets and lower fat dairy options, which are all lower in saturated fat. We can also see a low amount of sodium overall too, an emphasis on heart healthy oils, and of course, we cannot forget the lifestyle factors. And so you can also follow one of these eating patterns, or you can also just take note of these common themes. Something that I wanted to go back to was that big question: which is the best diet to follow? At the end of the day, knowing these patterns of eating, still, which diet can I follow? And I think it's really important to understand that there really is no one diet fits all. And like I mentioned before, the best diet that you can follow is the one that you can confidently maintain and enjoy in the long term and long run. And so if you personally really feel passionate about following the Mediterranean eating pattern, then maybe that's the one for you. Or maybe it's the vegan vegetarian one, then that's the one for you. Whichever one it is, I think, most importantly, we're looking at patterns, the main themes that are being done. So those plant-based, moving towards a more plant-based lifestyle. Another thing to take note is that if you're following one of these eating patterns, that's going to look different than your neighbor or your friend or your family member in how you follow it. And the reason why is, again, because we're so different. There's no one diet fits all. We all have different backgrounds, different preferences, different cultures, traditions, that it's really important that we don't forget those aspects. A really big thing I wanted to share is that a heart-healthy eating pattern should not replace or restrict you from your culture, traditions, and the foods you love. We want to focus on enjoyment, we want to focus on satisfaction, and we want to focus on longevity. And really make sure that the one that you choose feels right to you and fits right within your lifestyle. So that is the first question answered. The next question, or big myth or question I wanted to answer is it acceptable and okay to eat sugar? Sugar gets a really bad rep nowadays. But is sugar actually bad? In short, I would say no. It is all about balance and what we do more often. Also, it's important to take note that sugar is also a very broad term. And there are different types of sugar to consider. Another thing to take note is that earlier, when we took a look at the different pyramid schemes of the eating patterns, we could see that they didn't cut out completely sweets or things higher in sugar within that diet. It was just about having them less often or in moderation. That's really the key here, enjoying all foods in moderation. But let's review some of the sugar types. So there's two types of sugar that I wanted to review today. The first one is natural sugars. So natural sugars are the sugars that are found naturally in foods. For example, fruits and vegetables, dairy, or grains. Something else that we find a lot of in these various different foods is fiber, like we mentioned through the plant-based options. We also find vitamins and minerals, like we mentioned too. See, because there's so many benefits within these plant-based foods, we can most definitely include them within our heart-healthy lifestyle. Big question I get all the time too is, Gloria, is it okay to have fruit? Can I eat fruit? I heard fruit is bad because it's high in sugar. But fruit is also very high in fiber. It is also very high in vitamins and minerals, which are absolutely key to preventing heart disease and preventing further events. So I would say enjoy your fruit and enjoy your vegetables. Enjoy dairy if that's your thing, or dairy alternatives, and enjoy whole grains. Added sugar, on the other hand, is something that we want to be a bit more mindful of. Doesn't mean we can't have it, but it just means it's good to be mindful of it. Added sugar is foods that are added into various different products or foods by manufacturers. And there are various different types. A big question I get all the time is sugar A or B better than sugar C or vice versa? And I would say that there are many different types of sugars and they have similar effects to our blood sugar. There are many different types of added sugar and they all get converted to glucose in the end and have similar effects to our blood sugar. So at the end of the day, it's really about taste. Which one do you personally prefer in terms of taste? Things like table sugar, brown sugar, honey, maple syrup, agave, coconut sugar, cane syrup, nectar, molasses, corn syrup. They are all different types of added sugar and have similar effects. And so is honey better than the other, or is maple syrup better? Is agave better? Is coconut sugar better? Those are ones I hear often, which is why I'm mentioning them. No, they have similar effects. But if you prefer them, then by all means, enjoying those. I know some of us do enjoy guidelines, so I wanted to include some recommendations in terms of added sugar guidelines. So the American Heart Association, the World Health Organization, and Diabetes Canada recommend for women to have less than 6 teaspoons per day, which equates to about 25 grams of added sugar. For men, less than 9 teaspoons per day, which equates to about 38 grams of added sugar. And these recommendations are very helpful for many individuals, especially if, for example, you're adding maybe a teaspoon of sugar in your coffee or your tea in the morning or early afternoon, and you just like to better understand what is the guidelines or too much or etc. A useful conversion to take note of is that 1 teaspoon equals to about 4 grams of sugar. This is also very useful if you're using teaspoons to measure how much sugar you're having in a day, or when you're looking at, for example, a food label, and it often indicates the sugar in a product in grams, and if you need to do that conversion there. So take note of these recommendations in terms of added sugar, but don't let it drive you crazy either. They're just here to guide you, just numbers to guide you. So I wanted to go over some examples as well of common foods that you may purchase at the grocery store, as well as how much added sugar you can typically find in them to allow us to be a bit more mindful. So here I have 3 examples. The first one is a yogurt. It's a Greek yogurt, a flavored Greek yogurt, a strawberry one. In one individual pack, there's 4 in total in here, but just in one individual pack, we can find about 4 teaspoons of added sugar. And this can come at quite a surprise to many individuals when I do mention this. Oftentimes, flavored yogurts do have added sugar inside, but this is something that you personally enjoy and you just really, really like strawberry flavored yogurt, then by all means, you can enjoy your strawberry flavored yogurt. Another option too, worth trying out if you're open to it, is you could also purchase a plain Greek yogurt and pairing that with fresh strawberries or frozen strawberries and enjoying it like that. You also get the added benefits of fiber from the fresh strawberry or frozen strawberry. That's an option. Another example I wanted to go over are drinks. So orange juice and a can of Coke. For a cup of orange juice, we can find about 6 teaspoons of added sugar. And for a can of Coke, we can find about 10 teaspoons of added sugar. And this really does come at a surprise for many individuals as well, especially the juice. The thing with juice is that, for example, orange juice, oftentimes you'll see at the grocery store that it says no added sugar or unsweetened. And yes, there is no added sugar when they say there's no added sugar. But because to get that 1 cup amount, they have to squeeze quite a bit of oranges, the sugar still adds up. And often what's left out when we squeeze out the juice is the beneficial fiber. And that's why most often I do recommend for clients to choose whole fruits and vegetables more often. If you really like orange juice and you want to have that orange juice, by all means, but in that whole day, we want to think about how much fiber we're getting and try and have more fiber in other ways throughout that day. All about that balance there. So those are some examples, and I hope that will allow you to be a bit more mindful as to how much sugar is in products that we may commonly see. But again, don't let the numbers really, really drive you crazy. It's just something here to provide us an opportunity to be more mindful. Alrighty. So next question is it bad to eat foods high in cholesterol? This question is probably top 2 in terms of questions that get asked the most, next to what's the best diet for heart health. We can also see a picture I put on the screen of eggs. That's a huge question I get a lot too. Can I have eggs? How many eggs can I have in a week? Is the egg yolk bad? I only eat the egg whites. Is that okay? And a big thing that I often say to clients, and oftentimes it's not really a super simple answer. This answer is a little bit more complicated, but let's dive a little bit into it, and please be patient with me. So a really important thing to take note of is that for primary prevention, so before the onset of cardiovascular disease, when we're trying to prevent it from occurring, the research has shown that contrary to common belief, dietary cholesterol, so the cholesterol found in foods, in animal-based foods, has minimal effects on our blood cholesterol. So that means that the cholesterol you find in different foods, for example, eggs, doesn't actually affect our blood cholesterol significantly. However, for secondary prevention, so for in certain cases with known cardiovascular disease or high cholesterol risk, or you have high cholesterol, the research and guidelines aren't there currently in terms of dietary cholesterol levels. There is no set guideline as to we can't have this much, or there's a certain amount we have to stay below or under. And so it can get a little confusing. That's why it takes a bit of time whenever a client asks me this question. But what we do know for a fact is that a plant-based diet is something that we want to choose more often and seek towards. And that's what the guidelines are saying as well, that despite this lack of guideline in terms of an exact amount to follow for cholesterol in foods, what we do know for a fact is these patterns of eating that we want to engage with more often. What we could see through the pyramid schemes earlier as well is that the most foundational items are those plant-based foods. And it's not that we can never have eggs or things like that are higher in cholesterol. They're just something we want to choose in moderation. So if I really wanted to provide a number for something like eggs, if you enjoy eggs, by all means, you can have eggs in moderation to allow for more plant-based options and opportunity to introduce them within our heart-healthy diets, just because of how beneficial they are to the risk prevention. And so something else I wanted to take note of as well, though, is this quote I took from the American Heart Association guidelines. So the replacement of saturated with unsaturated fats lowers our low density lipoprotein cholesterol, our LDL, also known as our bad cholesterol, a cause of atherosclerosis, also known as plaque buildup in our arteries, linking biological evidence with incidence of cardiovascular disease in populations and in clinical trials. Really loaded quote here, but essentially what it's saying is that we want to add more unsaturated fatty acids within our heart healthy lifestyle to help lower our cholesterol and to prevent cardiovascular disease. And so what we do know about unsaturated fatty acids, which we'll be talking about in the next slide as well, is that they can be found in plant-based foods. So again, really emphasizing the importance of following a plant-based diet for heart disease prevention. And so don't let the eggs drive you too crazy. You know, if you want to enjoy eggs, there's really no foods that you have to cut out for your diet cold turkey. I most definitely am not the food police as well. Unless you're allergic or you're intolerant to a certain food, or the food is spoiled or poisonous, or you simply don't like it, there's really no reason to avoid a certain food. It's all about that balance. So let's dive a little bit more into fats and understand the terms a bit more, because they're a bit scientific just now. I want to make sure that we're understanding what they mean. So there's 3 fats I wanted to talk about. The first one is trans fat. Trans fat is a certain type of fat that's actually banned in Canada and the United States. It raises our LDL, also known as our bad cholesterol, and it also lowers our HDL, which is known as our good cholesterol. Our good cholesterol, we want higher because it helps get rid of excess cholesterol within our arteries. And so we want more HDL cholesterol. We want that raised. And so I typically recommend, well, we won't really see it as often anyways because it's banned, but I typically recommend to limit trans fat as much as possible within our heart healthy eating patterns. Saturated fat is another one, which we saw in the previous slide we want to replace. Saturated fat raises our LDL bad cholesterol as well, but it also raises our good HDL cholesterol. But because it raises our LDL cholesterol still, we do want to be mindful of that and still limit the amount that we're having within our diets. Unsaturated fats is the one we're talking about having more often. Unsaturated fats include different monounsaturated fats is one type, and the second one is polyunsaturated fats. 2 different types, both help lower our LDL cholesterol, the bad cholesterol, and it also raises our HDL good cholesterol. And monounsaturated fats can also be known as omega-9. These are terms you may have heard before. Polyunsaturated fatty acids can also be known as omega-3 and 6. We'll be talking about omega-3 fatty acids near the end as well. Monounsaturated fats, which we won't be talking so much, we'll be talking about a little bit more later on, but I wanted to touch upon some different food sources you can get it from. On the screen, we have a picture of avocados. You can get monounsaturated fatty acids from avocados. You can also get it through nuts and seeds and certain types of oils. Alrighty, so let's go over some sources of saturated fat, just so that we can be a bit more mindful of them. Certain foods are higher in saturated fat, and those include different things like animal-based proteins, especially higher fatty cuts of meat, red meats, chicken, turkey. They have saturated fat as well, especially the fattier cuts, but it is less than red meat. Seafood even less for the most part. Higher fat milk, yogurt, cheese, dairy in general is also higher in saturated fat, as well as tropical oils, for example, palm oil, by themselves or used in packaged products like snacks, desserts, or cookies are typically higher in saturated fat. The next question I wanted to go over is, what's the best cooking oil to use for heart health? This question I get asked all the time as well. So let's dive into the first example I wanted to talk about, coconut oil. Coconut oil is a really, really popular oil nowadays. The thing with coconut oil is there's a lot of different claims that saying that it's maybe beneficial for cardiovascular health, perhaps supports fat loss, or maybe even it's beneficial for memory. But unfortunately, a lot of these claims currently are not supported or backed up by strong evidence. And so we can't actually say that this is the case right now. But what we do know for a fact is that coconut oil is a tropical oil similar to palm oil, and it's very high in saturated fat. There's actually greater than 90% saturated fat in coconut oil. Which is also why it's a solid fat at room temperature, which we can typically solid fats are higher in saturated fat. And so coconut oil, I usually recommend it to be more of a specialty oil, something that you could use for specialty dishes. For example, maybe you're making a curry and you really want that popcorny taste or coconutty taste. By all means, you can use coconut oil. But as a main cooking oil, I would typically recommend to not use coconut oil as kind of like an everyday cooking oil. On the other hand, though, what I would recommend as an everyday cooking oil is extra virgin olive oil. Extra virgin olive oil, lots of science backs it up in that it is very beneficial for lowering our cholesterol levels and also raising our good cholesterol levels. And the reason why is really because it is high in those mono unsaturated fatty acids that we talked about earlier, the same ones that we see in nuts and seeds and avocados. And the extra virgin portion of olive oil really shows and indicates that it's also high in something called polyphenols, antioxidants. Antioxidants can also be found in most plant-based foods, and they really help to decrease oxidative stress and inflammation in our body, which is super important for heart health. A really common myth is that you cannot use extra virgin olive oil for warm applications. You can only use it cold in salads, for example. However, you can actually cook with it up to 400 degrees Fahrenheit, which is surprisingly higher than what we may believe. So I would say like extra virgin olive oil is a fantastic choice that you can use as a main cooking oil. If you're cooking above 400 degrees Fahrenheit, I would recommend to use a higher smoke point oil. That temperature at which the oil starts to smoke or loses its nutritional value is called the smoke point temperature. And so for extra virgin olive oil, that's up to 400 degrees Fahrenheit. For something like avocado oil, as an example, the smoke point is up to 500 degrees Fahrenheit, so it's much higher. So if you're doing maybe like grilling in the summer or baking at higher temperatures or even higher temperature cooking on the pan, I would recommend to use something like that with a higher smoke point, just to make sure that we're reaping the full benefits from the oils. Another tip with extra virgin olive oil is that I would recommend to store in a cool, dry place and to purchase one that's in a dark packaging just to ensure that all the nutrients stay intact. Alrighty, so let's jump into our final question or topic for the day. And really, the big question here is, what's the deal with omega-3 fatty acids? Super popular topic as well, especially in regards to omega-3 fatty acid supplements. So fish oil supplements. That's probably a common term that you hear a lot nowadays. There are lots of different supplements that are being sold on the market nowadays, and a lot of very much promoting cardiovascular health benefits. But when we look at the research, unfortunately, the research currently shows no clear benefit or advantage of omega-3 fatty acid supplementation to support cardiovascular health. And so I wouldn't typically recommend an omega-3 fatty acid supplement for heart health. It may be beneficial for other aspects of our health, but for heart health in particular, there is no clear benefit or advantage that's being shown through evidence. However, something to take note of is that when we do take omega-3 fatty acid supplements at a higher dose up to 4 grams per day, there is research to show that it may help decrease our triglyceride levels, which is it's a type of lipid target that we look at for cardiovascular health. So if you do have higher triglyceride levels, it may be worth taking an omega-3 fatty acid supplement at a higher dosage. However, this can only be done under the discretion of your physician, and it's something that your physician would prescribe to you. There are specific forms of the omega-3 that have been studied on as well. It's really, really key that you always speak to your doctor if you're taking certain medications to make sure there's no interactions, or with your pharmacist, because omega-3 fatty acid supplements are known to have interactions with certain medications, especially blood thinners. And so we don't want things to get unsafe. We want to make sure it's appropriate. So always speak to your physician if you're interested in taking omega-3 fatty acid supplement. Something I recommend a lot of the times is foods first before supplements, and that definitely does fall through as well with omega-3 fatty acids. To explain a little bit more about omega-3 fatty acids, we did talk about a bit about it, but it's really important for lowering inflammation within the body, which cardiovascular disease is connected to. And so because also it is something our body doesn't make, it's an essential fatty acid. So it's really important that we get it through foods. We can get it typically through fatty fish, or we can get it through plant-based sources. Fatty fish sources, typically we recommend to have fatty fish 2 to 3 times per week to get enough of the omega-3 fatty acid. And fresh, frozen, or canned are all great options. And about 3 to 4 ounces, or the size of a small palm of the hand, the thickness of a pinky, or a standard playing card deck is 1 serving, 2 to 3 times per week. And different types of fatty fish examples include things like salmon, trout, mackerel, sardines, herring, char, are all great options that are higher in omega-3. If fish is not your thing and maybe you just want to go for plant-based sources, that is totally fine as well. The thing about plant-based sources though is the form of omega-3 within these different sources is actually, we convert less into the form we actually use. And because of that, we'd have to have these sources on a daily basis in order to get enough of the omega-3 benefit. And so some examples could include 1 tablespoon of chia, hemp, or ground flax seeds on a daily basis, or a 1/4 cup of walnuts. Walnuts are actually one of the nuts that are the highest in terms of omega-3 fatty acid content, and they are great choices in terms of omega-3 as an omega-3 plant-based source. Another option is that you can always mix these sources. You can have fish and these plant-based alternatives as well. I always talk about this option with clients too, because there is always an opportunity to mix and match things, especially when you're introducing new things that maybe you're not used to. Maybe you're already having things like salmon, but you want to give walnuts or these seeds a try. By all means. It's also similar to plant-based proteins. Maybe you're used to having things like chicken or beef, but you want to give these plant-based proteins a try because through this presentation, we've really understood that of how beneficial they are for our heart health, incorporating more of these plant-based protein sources or plant-based foods in general. And so you give it a try, but you're not too sure how, and you're just adding a bit at a time. That is totally fine. And in fact, it's actually very beneficial to add it over time slowly, because the more fiber we add in our diets, when we're not used to having so much fiber, can actually cause a bit of bloating. And there is an adjustment period for that. Having said all of that, that does conclude my slides for today in terms of the top 5 heart health myths. I hope that you've learned some new things today that you can really take with you. I wanted to share my references. And also, I also wanted to extend an invite to you all. So Rochelle also mentioned in the beginning that my private practice is called Walnut Nutrition. And I wanted to extend an invite to you all to join my Transform Your Heart one-on-one coaching program. I work with clients and I've helped clients to really target their heart health goals in many different ways, whether it's lowering cholesterol or blood sugars and whatnot. Within this program, we do a comprehensive assessment of your medical and diet history. We also go over, there's continuous support through one-on-one sessions, multiple follow-up sessions. And there's also, I provide a written personalized nutrition plan to really target your goals. Also through this program, you'll have access to a secure client portal with access to food, mood, and lifestyle journals, which we can review together during our follow-up sessions as well, and unlimited private messaging support. Something else that you will also receive within this program is full access for up to 1 year to my Heart Healthy Foundations course. This is a 6-week self-paced course with 6 video modules led by myself. And we go over various different topics in terms of heart health, the key evidence for prevention. We talk about how to grocery shop. We talk about how to plan meals effectively, how to personalize it to your lifestyle. We also talk about grocery shopping, dining out, obstacles, and how to overcome them. And you also get 10 visual guides and infographics to really support your learning and take it to the next level. For example, the Heart Healthy Grocery List, Heart Healthy Snack Guide, Dining Out Guide, Label Reading Guide, and lots of other resources while in this course with one-on-one support. If you're interested, I would love to connect. And I wanted again to thank you all so much for your time and attending this presentation today. I have my contact information on the screen if you are interested in connecting, my website, email address, and Instagram account. But thank you so much. I'm going to pass the floor to Rochelle.
Perfect. Thank you so much. We will leave maybe like a couple minutes to see if anyone has any last little questions or anything that they'd like to ask you. But so far, it looks like everyone just doesn't have any questions. You've done such a good job of teaching us. It was such a wonderful presentation. But also, we do have your contact information on the screen there. So if anyone has any questions, maybe that they can't think of right now, maybe we can refer them to your email.
Oh, of course, okay. Most definitely. Yeah. Whether you want to connect on Instagram or email, whatever works.
Perfect. Okay, great. So, yes, that was the presentation, and it was a wonderful presentation. I learned so much. And I just wanted to remind everyone that is watching right now that we are sending you off those nutrition bucks. So, if you have a choices around you, you will be getting a nice coupon that just gives you $10 off when you spend 50 in store. All right, it looks like nothing so far. So with that, I will just end the seminar there and thank you again so much.